Good morning, everybody. It is so good to see all of you. Some of you look tan, some of you look tired. I won't pick out which ones. Today, this morning, we're going to do something a little different. If we haven't had a chance to meet, my name is Kevin Jack, and I am the pastor here at Be Hope Church. And typically on a Sunday morning, it's already high energy, but then it just stays really high energy the whole way through. And I've had a number of conversations with people recently that have asked me to address something in particular. And I usually don't take requests for messages. I usually don't take feedback from messages either. But we'll just keep moving. And so normally I don't dive into that. And there's a real reason why. I think there are spots within our church to really tackle hard, difficult subjects and go through that and to have those conversations. But honestly, I usually just don't think that this is the environment to do that. This is a celebration of what God is doing, of what God has done, and what God is going to continue to do. So we like to keep it focused on that. But I've had enough conversations with people that have said, and one of the conversations said this, is say, hey, I've always taught that there's three priorities in life. There's faith, there's family, and then there's country. And I hear you talk a lot about faith, and I hear you talk a whole lot about your family, which is, that's accurate within there. But I don't hear you talk about country much. And I have explained, I explained the reason why, hey, it's just usually really divisive and people are already angry. And if I just say I'm gonna talk about country, some people are already upset. Identify yourselves, who are you? Those of you who are. And so I usually kind of steer clear of that. But I've had enough conversations with people to say, hey, you know what? We've got the 4th of July coming up right here. We're kind of at this time of patriotism and national pride. And so if there was ever going to be a time that we're going to address some stuff, this would be the Sunday. So I want you to know, today I am going to take off my preacher's hat, which I'm not really wearing a hat for those of you who are dads and are I don't think he's wearing a hat at all. Funny joke, good job. I'm gonna take off my preacher's hat and we're gonna do some teaching this morning. And so that doesn't mean you can't respond, that doesn't mean you can't engage, that doesn't mean you can't amen, all of those things are still welcome. But I'm gonna dive through an enormous amount of content. And I just want you to know, I'm gonna use the slides a ton. If you want to take notes, you are welcome to, but I want you to know everything that is on the slides is gonna be at behope.church/notes, so you don't feel the need to just furiously scribble down all the quotes. And I just want you to know, if you don't like what we're going through today, again, today is not a typical Sunday. Join us next week. We're gonna celebrate Christmas in July. Yeah. I already got my shirts ready to go, and you are in for a treat. My wife groaned when she saw them. So you are in for a treat when we celebrate Christmas in July. So if you don't like today, come back next week. If you do like today, then I'll just lie to you and say, hey, this is what we do every Sunday. Congratulations, come back anyway within there. But this is where I want to begin. I want to begin with the Star-Spangled Banner, if we could. And I know they're like, what, we're beginning with the Star-Spangled? Yeah, the Star-Spangled Banner. And this is the last 2 lines of the Star-Spangled Banner. Oh, say does that Star-Spangled Banner yet wave, or the land of the free and the home of the brave. And I was at a sporting event recently, and it was interesting because normally they don't really have any grammatical punctuation within the Star-Spangled Banner. And I was at a sporting event, and they had an exclamation point at the end, because this is when we all sing it out right, and it's really triumphant, and the home of the brave. I'm not gonna sing it for you this morning. You are welcome. Congratulations that I spared you of that. But I was like, oh, that's interesting. I usually don't see that. And so I looked up the Star-Spangled Banner, and I was see, is there really an exclamation point at the end of the Star-Spangled Banner? And there isn't. But this is what there is. There's a question mark. I was like, what? What is that? Why is there a question mark at the end? Because none of us sing it like that, do we? Right? No one at the end of the Star-Spangled Banner, we sing it make our voices go way up like a question. That wouldn't be triumphant. That wouldn't feel patriotic at a sporting event. Home of the brave? Like it just doesn't come off the tongue that way. And so I started researching it, and some of you may know this, but the Star Spangled Banner, it became our national anthem in the 20th century, but it was actually written in the 19th century. It was written during the War of 1812. And what had happened, Francis Scott Key, who wrote the lyrics and composed the music for the Star Spangled Banner, he was actually in the middle of this war. He was on board a British ship to secure the release of a prisoner who was a friend of his. And while he is on board this British ship during the War of 1812, they are bombing Fort McHenry in Baltimore. And so as it's going through the night, and it was dark and it was cloudy, and they're continuing to bomb through the night, he said that when the evening started, that he could see one flag hanging over Fort McHenry. One American flag hanging over Fort McHenry. And then as it got darker and darker and later, he just couldn't tell if it was still there. And so he went below the ship and wrote these lyrics. And when he writes it, he really was asking a question. He thought, oh, say does that Star-Spangled Banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Because he wondered, when I wake up tomorrow morning, will the flag still be there? Or will the fort have been torn down? When I wake up in the morning, will the flag still be around? And so he put it at the end, this thing that we sing so triumphantly, which we should, he put a question mark. And you want to know, will the flag still be there? But I think this piece, if we could almost ignore all the rest, and if we could just say, hey, what about right here? What if this was our question this morning? Are we still the home of the brave? Are we still the people who are defined? Because we'll say it like this. We'll say, we're the land of the free because of the brave, right? You've said that, you've heard that. You're going to need to respond in some way. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume. Like, all I've done is pointed out the grammar of the Star Spangled Banner, and I'm convinced that I've already ticked all of you off. And we have not even begun the message, if I'm making myself clear on that. And we have this question like, hey, are we still the home of the brave? And I don't mean this a question of the military. I don't mean this a question of civilians. I mean this as a question of the citizens of the United States. Okay, so all of us in our everyday lives. And I think one of the most important things to understand is we will often talk about this, and I'll talk anytime I get a chance to talk to men, I'll talk to them about this, of saying, yes, you will always say that you're willing to die for something. Every man I have ever known has something that he is willing to die for. Are you willing to live for that thing as well? Are you willing to not give your life in death, but to give your life in life for that thing at the exact same time? And so this becomes the question. And I want to show you why this question of, are we still people of courage, is actually so embedded in who we are, not just as Christians, but as citizens of the United States. C.S. Lewis, he said it like this. He said, courage is not simply one of the virtues, but the form of every virtue at the testing point. It's an amazing statement. He says, courage is not something that you just like simply have and then you're a bad person. He goes, no. Courage is honesty to the extreme. Courage is faithfulness to the extreme. That's what courage is. Courage, more than anything else, is a sign that you are someone of character. That you are a person who has integrity. That's what courage doesn't reside on an island by itself, but it's the form of every single virtue at its testing point. And this becomes, even if you're not a person of faith, and I want to tell you that today I'm going to give things from a Christian perspective of how we should operate and how we should posture ourselves, but to give them from a Christian perspective. But I want you to see as well, if you're not a person of faith, that character should be unbelievably important to you. This is what John Adams, one of the key architects of the Constitution, wrote. He says, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Isn't that fascinating? Like that blew me away. Like John Adams says, no, this is how it was written. It was written for people who are good. And if people aren't good, if we have to legislate morality, it's gonna fall apart. Can I get an amen on that? There we go. Now we're involved. And so I want to dive into that. Man, what does that look like? If it's important for us as Christians to be people of courage, and if it's important for our nation for us to be people of character, what does that actually look like as it comes to politics? What does that actually look like as it comes to how we operate within the political realm? And this is what I really thought. I really thought we have a national election coming up in 2020. You're aware, right? I thought, if I do this on the Sunday before the 4th of July in 2019, I'll get in before all the craziness, right? Like, I'll get in before people lose their minds and all the insanity ensues, right? And then I'm just sitting on my couch this week and I'm flipping through, and there was a Democratic presidential candidate debate this past week. I was like, are you kidding me? A year and a half ahead of time? Like, I thought I was ahead of the game, but apparently I was not. And so this is the verse that is going to be our center point for today. This is 2 Timothy 1:7. He says this: "For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity." And then he leaves. He goes, "But of," and you would all expect, you go, he hasn't given a spirit of fear and timidity. And so you go, "But of," and you would expect like courage, right? Because that's the opposite of fear. You would expect bravery, right? Because that's the opposite of timidity, which is a way fun word to say, just so you know. So I'm going to use that as often as I can. Timidity. And so I was expecting it to end with those things, but this is how he ends it. He says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline." So he says, no, the opposite of fear isn't just courage, but it's actually courage in 3 different expressions. And so the opposite of timidity isn't just bravery, but it's actually courage within power, courage within love, and courage within self-discipline. And so that's what I want to take us through. I want to take us through these 3 different expressions of courage and what it looks like in our lives, what it looks like from a Christian perspective, okay, to engage within politics and everything else that shapes our nation and our country and all that other stuff. And this is just what I'm going to ask, please, okay, ready? I'm just going to ask this right on the front end. Please don't soundbite me, okay? Please don't hear me start a sentence and decide that you disagree with me and so turn off and never hear anything else that I say. Okay, could I just ask like that grace on your end? Because sometimes people come up to me after a message and they'll be like, "Kevin, I disagree with something that you said." I was like, well, join the club. And here's the reality, and I'm just gonna be, okay? I am flawed in so many ways. And there is a real chance this morning that I will say the thing that I meant, but not in the way that I meant to say it. Or I will at times, one time I was tracing the spread of Christianity from Jesus to like the county that we were in. And I had memorized the spread of Christianity over 2,000 years. And it was impressive, okay? If I could just say that on the front end, like it was really impressive, except I accidentally called Africa a country. And someone ever was like, "Oh, I can't trust you. You think Africa's a country." I memorized 2,000 years of history, and I messed up on that. It's okay, I'm receiving counseling. We'll be just fine. So this is where I want to start. 3 expressions of courage. I want to start by talking about self-discipline. And I want to talk about what it looks like for us to have the courage to have self-discipline, the courage to have self-discipline. Now, as it comes to the conversation on our politics and our nation, when we're talking about self-discipline, what do you think we are talking about? What would we need self-discipline for as it came to the conversation on politics? We're talking about your mouth, okay? That's what we're diving into right now within here. Talking about what that actually looks like in terms of our conversation, our dialogue, how we go through that. And there's all these different Bible verses that gives us guidelines, gives us commands gives us strategies for how we should speak about different things. And this is the one that everyone loves to quote. This is Ephesians 4:15. It says, instead, we will speak the truth in love, right? Anyone ever use that? That's our job. We are to speak the truth in love. And this is just what I have found, okay? Not you, other people, okay? Not you, the people around you, all right? We are a really poor judge as to whether or not we're speaking the truth in love, right? We're really bad at understanding that. And what he's saying there, and sometimes we fall back into this as Christians, okay? Again, from a Christian's perspective, sometimes Christians will say, well, I should say that because it's true. Yeah, it is. But your posture, your attitude is very, very different. Like, I am, and some of you hate yelling. I'm a yeller by nature. Like, I just am. Things happen, I just yell. Sometimes I just yell for fun. Like, why are you yelling? Why aren't you yelling? I'm having a blast. But like, I'll yell at my children. This is not a newsflash to any of you. You're like, I've seen you yelling at your children. I actually met some of our neighbors yesterday while I was putting my kids in the car. And the scenario went like this. I'm quite literally getting them in the car, and I am finished to say, like, if you do not quit leaving your toys in my car, I am going to take every toy you have. And they said, excuse me, hey. Nailed it, crushed it, invited them to church. They're coming. So we talk about this, and so like I'll yell at my kids, and there's a difference, if I could say it like this. There's a massive difference in their response between whether I am yelling for their safety, like they need to know something right that second or they are going to get hurt, and that is not the time for me to go, hey, Maddie, don't walk out in front of the moving traffic. There's a car coming, right? That would not, I should yell. There's a massive difference between how they respond when I am yelling for their safety and when I am yelling out of anger, right? Now, my tone of voice is the same, but how they respond because of my posture within that is very different. And so we always come back to it, we're like, speak the truth in love. Well, I told them, but I did it lovingly. I was like, well, that's lovingly for you? I would hate to be married to you. Those of you married, turn to your neighbor, say, no, don't do that, don't say that. So I want to give us a different verse that's kind of our guideline. A little further beyond Ephesians 4:15 is Ephesians 4:29. It says, don't use foul or abusive language. Let everything you say be good and helpful. And this is what that verse is saying, is you are not simply responsible for the posture with which you speak. You are responsible for the outcomes of the words that you say. You see the massive difference there? And we may say, well, I said it, but I didn't mean it like that. And you go, no. You are way more responsible than that. You are way smarter than that. You can't anticipate the responses of the words that you say. And so you are responsible, not just for the way you attempted to say it. He says, no. It needs to be good and helpful. You're responsible for the outcomes of the words that you say. Now, I want to show you something that I learned at a conference a couple years ago that just blew my mind. And this was the idea of the difference between 2D and 3D communication. And if you'll just kind of hang with me, it says, hey, there are two kind of forms of communication and ways in which we can communicate within that, 2D and 3D communication. And this is how it's defined. These are the categories of 2D and 3D communication. 2D communication, we get it like paper, flat, right? You understand that? Two dimensionals, not complicated. 2D communication is decisions that are yes-no decisions and just like information. We are meeting at 9 o'clock, not 9:05, 9 o'clock. Some of you can show up at 8:55 because we are, thank you, 4 of you. Keep going, recover from that. So 2D communication is just, hey, it's simple. It's, hey, I need to know yes, no. I just need to get this information to you. 3D communication is complex. 3D communication are things that require a discussion. 3D communication are things that go, hey, I need different angles. I need different feedback on this. Now, here's the beauty of it, is we have different mediums that are allotted to us to communicate with. And so let me show you them. So there are 2D mediums. right? There are letters, there are emails, there are notes, there are memos, right? Things you can just send. It's on a piece of paper. You just received it in an email. It's not face-to-face. It's 2D. It's two-dimensional. And then there are 3D mediums of communication. There are conversations. There are meetings. This could be a speech or something like that. Something that requires maybe you're FaceTiming someone. Things that require a more in-depth approach. Does that make sense? Are we on the same page? What 2D and what 3D is? All right, now this is where we get into trouble. First off, we take 2D information, yes, no things, simple information, and we communicate it through a 3D medium. And when you do that, you waste everyone's time, right? How many of you have ever been to a meeting and at the end of the meeting said, I don't understand why that wasn't an email, right? Anyone been there? My staff, don't raise your hands, okay? Thank you very much. So, like, when you do that, when you take information that is 2D information and communicate it in a 3D form, you waste everyone's time. But then this is where it gets that's annoying, that's a nuisance. This is when things get hard, is when we take complex topics and we communicate it through a 2D medium. When you take complex topics and you communicate it through a 2D medium, what you do is it loses its richness. It loses its richness. Like when if I go back many years, because now we are very old. If I go back to like when my wife and I first found out that we were pregnant, we didn't send our parents a text, we're pregnant. We didn't send our parents an email, hey, we're pregnant. No, we wanted to like tell them. We're like, hey, what are you guys doing? Are you guys doing anything for dinner tonight? All right, let's meet here. Let's go to dinner. Because I wanted to tell it to them and see their reaction, right? Because if I would have just sent it through a 2D medium, I wouldn't have had the richness of that thing. Or like in the same way, whether it's good news or bad news, when we take something that is complex, that is rich, that is textured, and we revert back to flat communication methods, it loses its richness. Make sense? All right, now here's the problem. Where do you think politics falls between 2D and 3D communication? Where do you think the political process and all the policies and laws and candidates and everything else falls within that? 4D. Sometimes you guys make my life easier, sometimes you make it harder. Now, it's there, right? It's not simple. As much as every talking head on TV wants to get up there and be like, well, duh, it's this. No, it's not simple. And here's the problem, is what is our preferred method of talking about this 3D communication piece? Yeah. You see the problem? So hear me in this, okay? Hear me. This is as simple as I can say it. I am not telling you to not have conversations about politics. I think you should. I am not telling you to not engage with others and get the diversity of view, or maybe what we often do, just to talk to other people who share the same view, okay? I think all of those things are fine. I am not telling you don't talk about politics. But this is what I am gonna say. Now that you're aware of 2D and 3D communication, now that you are aware that you are not just responsible for your intent, but for the results of the words that you say and the things that you post, could we stop that? Like, could we just quit that? Could we cut that out? And if we could take a brief straw poll, let me make sure all your hands work. Do all your hands work? Okay, I asked if everyone's hands works, and I got about 70% participation, just so we know that's the base level going into this thing. How many of you have had your political viewpoint on a key issue changed because of someone's clever meme or 3-minute rant video? How many of you have had your viewpoint changed? Okay. Now, let's be honest here. Ready? How many of you have had your view about someone changed because of their clever meme or their 3-minute rant video? You see? Like, you see? Right there. And so this is as preachy as I'm going to get this morning. That's probably not true because it tends to come out anyway. This is what is happening. Christian perspective, okay? If you are outside the faith, this does not apply to you. 2D, 3D communication still may be something helpful to know. But this is what is honestly happening, is we have a kingdom that we are invited to enter into that Jesus established for us that will stand the test of time that is eternal. And what we are doing is we are trading in our credibility on a kingdom that is unshakable to spout out our opinion on a nation that is temporary. And that is a dumb trade, right? That is as dumb as it gets. So please, I'm just asking you within this, let's just stop that. Let's just be done with that, because this is what happened. I started here in December of 2016. So I started here like a month and a half after the last national election. And there were still grumblings. Not just grumblings about our political process and outcomes and everything else, grumblings about other people in the church and their viewpoints and what they posted. And so I'm just telling you right now, when it comes to 2020, we ain't doing that again. Like, that is not happening again. And so we're gonna be done with that. Scattered applause, people don't really know what to say. Thank you, I appreciate the feedback and the affirmation. Let's move on. 2 Timothy 1:7, let's bring that back up here. He says, for God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline. And so I want to talk about that second expression of courage, the courage to love. The courage to love. You go, what does love have to do with the political process? Isn't that funny that it actually would be like, what on earth would love have to do with our politics? Well, that may be the sign of a problem. So those of you who are from this area, you know this. Those of you who aren't or who are watching online, let me explain this. So our building is on North Fairfield Road, and there is this lot that is slightly down North Fairfield Road. It's, for those of you here, it's right by the Speedway. You know which lot I'm talking about, the empty lot. I don't know why it's empty. I'm assuming another donut store, mattress store will be there in the near future, but we'll see how that goes. So there's this empty lot by Speedway, and the lot always looks horrendous, right? It looks like grass. I hope none of you own that lot. But what will happen is, as we get closer to the political season, that lot will be filled with signs advertising candidates. Like, I mean, it is a large lot. And there is not a speck of space for your eyes on that front row, because every single candidate will have a sign within that lot. And to me, it's just this like great statement of like, it looks terrible, but everybody would take time to stop and put their sign in the lot. And it's just this statement of like, we care more about winning than making things better. We care more about advancing our own personal agenda than doing what would actually be most beneficial and most helpful. And I say this is my testimony this morning. If somebody would just mow the dang field and put a sign up that said, I mowed the field, you have my vote. I don't care what you believe in. You have my vote if you'll just mow the field. And that's like where we are. We go, hey, instead of caring, we just want to advance our agenda and advance our viewpoint. And this is actually not a new problem, this lack of caring. I want to show you John Wesley. Theologically, if we could jump into that for just a second, his beliefs, what he saw revealed in the Bible about the Christian faith is what in many ways became the Nazarene Church, of which we are a part of. That is new information for some of you. Welcome to a Church of the Nazarene. We're so glad to have you here today. And so I want to show you John Wesley, again, whose theological roots became our beliefs today. I want to show you an entry from his journal. This is what John Wesley wrote. He said this: I met those of our society who had votes in the ensuing election and advised them, 1, to vote without fee or reward for the person they judged most worthy. 2, to speak no evil of the person they voted against. What? What a novel idea. And 3, to take care their spirits were not sharpened against those that voted on the other side. He says, vote for who you think's best. Don't talk about the person on the other side and how terrible of a person they are. And make sure that in this process, you do not become angry or jaded or frustrated, that your spirits are not sharpened against those that voted on the other side. And when did he write that? 1774. So you get like, this is not a new problem, right? This is not a new issue that he has within there. And this is what I believe. This is what I believe wholeheartedly, is I believe that now we are becoming in a state in which just to be outraged has become the norm. Like, that is our culture. We are living in the age of the outrage culture, and we are living in the age in which it is far easier to push someone aside than to come together. And pieces of that have always been true, but it is becoming far more normalized and easier today than I believe it ever has been. And I think one of the greatest gifts that the church and Christians can give to the world is this reminder that people matter more than politics. That people matter more than policies. And Paul, he actually writes this to Timothy in a different verse. He says, as for you, always be sober-minded. He said, like, hey, at the end of the day, be reasonable. And I feel like, okay, this is what is going to happen. In the next year, we're going to have what happens with every election. We're going to have a competition. And I feel like both parties have a competition to see who can say the most outrageous thing, right? It's almost like we go back and forth and like, well, they went all the way over here, and so we're going to go further this way, and then they'll go further this way. And what if we as the church, what if we just tried to be reasonable? And at the end of the day, had this constant voice that says, hey, regardless of what you believe, I believe that you as a person matter more than your policies. And I am going to take care that no matter what you think, no matter what you say, that my spirit is not sharpened against you. Now, you could help me if you quit posting on Facebook every single meme that you come across, okay? So that would make it easier on my end. But regardless of what you do, that is what I'm going to focus on, because that is what the courage to love really looks like. Now I want to jump into this last one, and this is where we're really going to have some fun. Have we not already had fun? Okay. For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power. Power. And so I want to talk to you about the courage to do something, because that's what power is. Power is to enact change. Power is to do something significant. The courage to do something when it would be easier to do nothing. I want to talk to you about the courage to do something even when it means receiving criticism. Because I believe wholeheartedly that what the church was always meant to be was not just a place where people gather, but a place where change happened. And that the world was different, the world was better because of not just what happened here on Sunday morning, but then what we all went out scattered to our different places and what we did, who we were. And this is actually the original call. If you go all the way back to the book of Genesis, when God called Abram, later became Abraham, this is what he desired for him. He says it like this in Genesis 12:2. He says, I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous, not just for your own. I don't just want to make you famous. I will bless you and make you famous, and you will be a blessing to others. This was the call of the church, for all the way back to Abram, to be a blessing to the nations. And so on that idea, there is something we need to talk about, of a blessing to the nations. And we need to talk just for a couple minutes about immigrants. Not immigration, okay? We need to talk about immigrants. And I just want you to get used to this, because some of you are going to have to say this after service. Turn to the person next to you and tell them right now, go ahead, turn to the person next to you and say, he didn't say that. Okay, because some of you are going to have to use that. We are not talking about policy. We are not talking about deportation camps. We are not talking about ICE. We are not talking about walls, okay? So turn to him again and say, he didn't say that. I want to talk to you for just a couple minutes about immigrants, the people who are here. Not the policies that we do, not what all the political campaigns say, not what the politicians promise. I want to talk to you about the people who are here. The people who often get lost in this entire process. And we forget within this, and all this discussion of fear and this idea of, oh, this will happen, oh, what about this? And we get this idea that this is simple, and I don't think it's simple. I think this is 3D. I think this is complex. And I think within the complexity, we forget that there's people. Okay? Husbands, wives, children, fathers, mothers. We forget that these are people at the end of the day. And we actually know some of these people. And I think as long as this remains anonymous, we are not postured to have the right conversation. And I've actually, we've learned a ton recently about this. We've done some study on it, and I found some fascinating things. Like I came into this with the idea that like there were two statuses. We talk about legal immigrants and we talk about illegal immigrants. And I thought that's all there was. And some of you are looking at me and you go, well, duh, Kevin, you're a moron. We know better than that. And others of you are taking that posture, but you're going, oh, I didn't know there were more than two statuses. And we found out like there's like all these other statuses that are like temporary statuses that people have to kind of like move through, and it's better for their long term to have more permanent statuses. But I found like the thing is really complex. Out of curiosity, how many of you, this is not a statement of your economic ability, something like that. This is an illustration that's going to point back to immigration, so hang with me for a second. Okay, how many of you have someone do your taxes? How many of you have someone do your taxes? The rest of you, bravo. Does someone want to do my taxes? Because I don't know how to do my taxes. So I'm grateful for you people. I found this out. I found that immigration law is the most confusing. It is considered the most confusing law next to tax law. And I have people do my taxes. and this is what we began to see and what we studied and what we realized is that as people come from other nations, and there's this, one of the things that I found out is when someone comes here as a political refugee for safety, that they don't get to pick the country that they come to. That their names actually go into a pool, and there's all these different countries that accept refugees, and they don't know where they're going to end up when they apply for refugee status. And so we're going through these different things, and people come here and they don't know the system because the system is complex, and they don't know the resources that are available to them. And I've been watching, there's this Facebook page that's the Beaver Creek Tornado Network. I know many of you are on it. Thank you for the likes when I post something. I appreciate that. It makes me feel better about myself. But I've been watching over the last just couple weeks as we're in the aftermath of this tornado of people who have like, just contractors who came in who promised they would do one thing and then left. And people have been posting things like, hey, be careful about so-and-so. Hey, watch out for so-and-so. They're doing this. And like we've gone through this and we go, wow, understanding the resources that you can trust is really complex and really difficult. And just imagine that. If you came from a different country and you're on this temporary status and you don't know how to get to a more permanent status and the system is confusing and you have low resources and you don't know who you can trust. And this is not anonymous. Again, we know these people. And I want to share a story with you of a couple from our own congregation and how they navigated through this process. And so I want to show you Aaron and Ashley's story if you'd watch the screens.
Hello, my name is Aaron Trincado. This is my wife, Ashley. We have been married for 8 years, and we've been coming to Be Hope for almost a year, and we love it. I have been involved in this church as a volunteer in the worship team. I play the saxophone, and I sing, and I also do cameras.
And I've been involved with helping Alyssa sign up people after church for baptism and forward class. And it's been a really great experience to come into a church and feel like we have a place that we can get involved and we can help people and we can really just have a community that's surrounding us and supporting us in all the decisions that we make and all the struggles that we deal with. What you may not know about us is that Aaron is an immigrant.
So I was born in Caracas, Venezuela. My parents and I went to live in Chile. up to the age of 15 years old, which is when my family, my parents, my younger sister, and me, we came to the States. We came with a religious visa, and through a problem, something happened with the government. We became undocumented, and we did not know about it. So when we found out, it was really hard news.
That meant that Aaron could not apply to renew his license. It meant that he could not work. It meant an array of things that affected our lives. We were just dating, but even as someone who was in love with this person who didn't know where they were going or how they were going to get there, it was a really difficult time in our lives. When Aaron and I decided to get married, that was a conversation that we had to have, and we had to have it with my parents and his parents. And how are we going to navigate this situation, and how are we going to make it right? But we didn't know which way to go. And so we sat down with a lawyer, just to sit down with a lawyer and ask some questions. We ended up paying over $2,000 just to get some answers about what documentation we needed to get, how we needed to file different paperwork so that he would be documented. Even though he came to this country on a visa, it was still a process that was so overwhelming to us. We had no experience.
We had to prove to the government that our relationship was a legitimate relationship. We had to compile all kinds of pictures. We had to get all kinds of pictures of us just together. It'd be at a restaurant, at a soccer game, tickets at a movie theater that we went to maybe.
That was really stressful, being a young married couple, trying to prove that we loved each other, and trying to get that across so that that they would believe us. It was a process that was time-consuming, and it cost a lot of money, and we didn't have anybody. Finally, we were able to send that information in. It was processed. He was able to get his 5-year green card, and after his 5-year green card, then he was able to apply for citizenship, which was one of the best days of our lives.
Oh yeah, I remember that day. It was almost unreal. It had been so long, so many hours spent, so much time and effort, and then it's finally here. I have it, and now I don't have to worry about it again. It wasn't just about me, it was about us, it was about our family, it was about what we were gonna go through, it was about what our future might look like now. People need to know that people going through this, immigrants going through this process, there's still people who need help, and they might not be so inclined to ask for help, but they still need the help.
What I would like people to know is that sometimes we don't know the circumstances of people's lives and what brought them here and what they're, like Aaron said, what they're going through. But we are called to be light and hope, and whatever we can do as a congregation, as a community, to help somebody in this situation that we were in, that we wish we had a community to gather around us and support us. We wish that we had a church to give us hope in that time. So I just want everyone to know that we all have a part to play, and the part is to just give a little bit of hope, maybe when there is none.
Would you thank Aaron and Ashley for sharing their story? Isn't that cool? Oh, we know them. Like, these are our people. Who gets geeked out when they see Aaron on stage with the saxophone? Like, right? Like, I'm there like, oh yeah, the saxophone this Sunday. I cannot wait for what's happening. And so we want to help. We want to help people like Aaron and Ashley. And so let me tell you what is happening and what is going to happen. So we start to have this conversation of, hey, what can we do? And I have a friend who's a pastor in Oregon. He says, well, our church runs this immigration legal services center. was like, what on earth is that? And he started to explain it to me. He's like, we don't change the law. We don't write the law. We do not advocate for policy change. We're not doing any of those things. We are helping people navigate the system. We are helping people follow the law. Now, regardless of your viewpoints on immigration and everything else, I would feel like that is something we could all be behind, right? To help people follow the law. Some of you, as I drive down North Fairfield, and it goes from 45 to a 35, and I'm still 45. Some of you help me follow the law. Thank you. Thank you for your honks. Thank you for your waves. Thank you for your one finger. That's probably shouldn't have gone there. Probably should have stopped. I'll stop at the 11 o'clock service before that. No, we want to do that. And he started to share the story of like all the incredible things that have happened within their community. And I thought, I want that. And so I came back from meeting with my friend, and I had a conversation with Alyssa Evans, one of our pastors on staff. And I said, hey, I've got a friend who's talking about this. Would you just check it out? And I want you to know, just as a whole, some of you feel like, hey, we're doing a lot of things. We've started a lot of things. I want you to know as a staff, we have started way more things than any of you ever see. And we just kind of run it on the table of like hey, if it like flounders out, well, no, we weren't supposed to do it. And we're perfectly okay with something that we started not taking root and not moving forward. But we started talking about this thing, and I just want to tell you, it got legs, and it ran way faster than I would have ever intended that it would. And we started having conversations with people, and we'd have conversations with people like, oh, yeah, I would love to help with that. And some people in our church would ask, like, hey, what are you guys doing with that? And they're like, oh, I've always wanted to be a part of something like that. And the team kept growing and building. And then we said, well, if we're going to do this, we would need a building. And so we had a conversation with our district, and we said, hey, Dayton is a sanctuary city. Dayton is a city that has a lot of immigrants. We're looking at doing this. What do you think? And they said, well, we actually have this building that's going to become available at the end of the month. Would you like it? And we're not saying no to free buildings. Why, yes, we would. And so in June of 2020, we are, as a church, going to be launching the Be Hope Immigration Legal Services Center in downtown Dayton. And I want you to know, man, I really am. I am so excited about this. If you have any questions on this, Alyssa Evans and Molly Sloan are going to be a lead on this, and they're going to be out in the lobby after service. If you have questions, you can talk to me. I probably won't know the answers, okay, just so you know. But you're welcome to talk to me. I'd love to say hi either way. But I want to stress this, okay? We are not changing the law. We are not writing the law. We are not advocating for policy change. We are helping people follow the law. We are helping them navigate a system that is overwhelming. And when they don't have steps forward within the current system, we will explain that to them with kindness and compassion and care. That is what we are doing. And some people may get this, they go, well, why are we doing this? And there's 1,000 reasons why. Like, one of the things is our hope within our church of starting all these other campuses that will be a light to their communities. One of the beliefs that we have is that we should gather people together before we ever start a service. And so, like, as we're launching Fairborn in the fall, I just want to pause there. There's usually a woo. I usually throw off the woo. As we're starting Fairborn in the fall, our church was already there. And so we're just starting a service where our church already was. As we've looked at Dayton, we said, hey, we need a way of gathering a community. And so that's what we're going to be doing in downtown Dayton. We're gathering a community, and then one day we will start a campus there. And so part of it is that. Part of it is this, is like, I don't feel like we need a reason to help people who need help. I don't feel like at the end of the day we go, well, it's complex, and we may get criticized. Like, these people need help. And so that's what we do. Part of the reason of why is this, is that we as a church, we do not buy into the lie that we cannot both be pro-security and pro-immigrant, right? Like, we understand that that is a lie and that we can do both at the same time. And we understand this. We understand that this is not just pivotal to our reputation as Christians, but this is actually pivotal to our nation. I want to show you one other John Adams quote. I gave you the one earlier. This is what John Adams writes. This is kind of haunting. He says this: democracy, while it lasts, is more bloody than either aristocracy or monarchy. Remember, Democracy never lasts long. That's got to be chilling right there, right? Democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There is never a democracy that did not commit suicide. They go, well, why is that? Why would it do that? Well, let me tell you, it's because of the spirit. 2 Timothy 1:7. Because of the spirit of fear and timidity. That's why. That's why every democracy that has ever existed in our world murdered itself. Because we bought into fear. And we also did this, is we quit being people of courage. And so this question, if we could go all the way back to the Star-Spangled Banner, which is where we began, this question of are we still the home of the brave becomes the question that each of us as citizens and Christians needs to be able to answer. And this is what I believe more than anything else. I believe the deepest forms of courage do not come simply because we have character, do not come simply because we believed in something. I believe the deepest forms of courage come from Jesus. I believe the deepest forms of courage come from our faith. That when you understand what Jesus did on the cross to forgive you of your sins, you don't have fear of what people are going to say about you. You don't have fear of who's going to criticize you because you understand your worth is not from people's opinions. When you realize that Jesus died on the cross for your sins, when he died on the cross for your sins and defeated death, you don't have fear over safety in attempting to control everything that's going to happen because you realize that's where that courage comes from. And so I want you to know this today. Man, we have talked about a lot of things, and you may have disagreed with me on every single thing that I said. And that's okay. But I want us to find unity in this, okay? Just in this one piece. Is that the best thing you can do is to build your life on a kingdom that is eternal. To put your focus on what can never be taken from you. Because the political process will change and be exhausting. The president and the elected officials will change. But our God is eternal. Our God is constant. And that is what our faith is in. I invite you, if you would you stand? This is what we're going to do this morning. We're going to sing one more song together. And I want us to sing this song as a declaration for ourselves. And the song that we're going to sing is the song that we've sang many times before, titled Build My Life. And we acknowledge within this that our lives are built not on what is temporary, but what is eternal. That our lives are built on who Jesus is and what he has done on our behalf. And what's going to happen at the end of this song is I'm going to come up at the very end. And I am going to invite you, if you have never accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior, to do exactly that. And this is what I know, is that if you put your hope in a nation, or if you put your hope in a candidate, that your hope will soon waste away. But if you put your hope in Jesus, you'll find that it'll grow and it'll build and it'll endure through every circumstance and every trouble. And so I want to invite us to sing that together. But first, could I pray over us? God, as a community, as a congregation, as people of faith, today we've dove into the deep end of what it looks like to be a Christian within trouble, within struggle, within opposition, within disagreement. And Father, I just pray in this moment where my words have failed that your Spirit would prevail. Where our knowledge is limited, that your wisdom is transcendent. And Father, I just pray in this moment that you would center us on you, that through these lyrics that we sing, through these words that rise up to you, that you would center us, that the only life that matters is the one that is built on you. And we lift this up to you. In the name of your Son we pray.